coming to you live from the heart of the free state of New Hampshire. This is The Independence with Carla Garrick. And now, here's your host, Carla Garrick.
Hi guys, and welcome to The Independence. It's been a few weeks. I apologize for missing a couple of weeks. Life has been busy, but spring has sprung and we are back here in the studio. Of course, if you're watching this today live on the streaming platforms or maybe later today, it is April 15th, which if you are a libertarian or a liberty lover is your day. We, of course, refer to April 15th as Tax Slave Day. And I thought as a lark, before I introduce my guest here in a minute, I asked Grok this morning, hey, give me your top 10 like most snarky IRS jokes. And some of them were kind of lame, but there were a few that I thought were worth sharing with you guys. So the first one is more a lesson, really, but it says a big tax refund feels great until you remember it's your own money that the government borrowed interest-free from you all year long. Congrats on getting a loan from yourself. The second one was taxes are a little like a broken pencil. They leave you feeling completely pointless and a little shorter. And then last but not least, did you know that the IRS literally spells theirs? You think that's a coincidence? I think not. Your money was never yours anyway. So today we have a wonderful guest here in the studio. It is my fellow colleague, my partner in crime often, an early mover to the Free State Project as well. Mark Warden. Actually, I told him before the show, hi Mark.
Hi Carla, great to be here.
Thank you for joining me. I told Mark that one of my favorite things to do is, as I sort of develop my relationship with the AI out there, is to run my guests' bios through the AI to see what they have to say. So I wanted to read what Grok says about you. You could correct anything that's wrong, but I thought it sounded pretty awesome, and so I wanted to highlight some of your professional career. Mark Warden is a dedicated advocate for liberty, an experienced real estate professional, and a longtime leader in New Hampshire's pro-freedom community. As a founder and owner-broker of Porcupine Real Estate, a boutique firm specializing in helping Free State Project participants and other liberty-minded individuals relocate to New Hampshire, Mark has assisted countless, sometimes I wish we should count, clients in finding homes, investment properties, and opportunities aligned with their values. With nearly 2 decades in the real estate industry, Mark has facilitated over $100 million in residential transactions. I think that number might be close, right?
It's probably higher than that by now.
Yeah. It's higher. I'm sorry. That's even more impressive. As an early participant in the Free State Project, one of the first 500 pioneers, Mark moved to New Hampshire from Las Vegas in 2007. He has remained deeply committed to the movement as an ambassador, a volunteer, spokesman, sponsor, and consistent financial supporter. He donates a portion of his commissions to the Free State Project and other liberty-oriented organizations while also investing in New Hampshire-based businesses and owning multifamily rental properties. So Grok knows that about you.
It does.
You have served 4 terms in the New Hampshire House. Is this your 5th term?
This is my 5th term.
Okay, so you've served 4, but your 5th one is there right now. You've held leadership roles in the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance over the years, including acting as a past chairman and as director of the board of the Get Involved PAC, a vocal proponent of limited government, individual rights, and free market principles. Mark has championed issues such as regulatory reform, personal freedoms, and reducing barriers to entrepreneurship. You are a recognized early adopter of cryptocurrency. You made history as the first legislative candidate in the United States to accept crypto campaigns back in 2012. Like, we've been doing this so long, we're actually forgetting what we've done. And you were the first real estate broker in New Hampshire to complete its residential property sale using Bitcoin back in 2017. You live your principles by building community among porcupines, supporting fellow liberty advocates through hiring, referrals, and active involvement. And you are building a freer society in New Hampshire, and you live in Manchester. Welcome.
Thank you, Carla.
So what do you think?
I think it's pretty accurate.
Right?
It's very well done.
I mean, I think Grok groks you. So that's good to hear. So far, I've done this with like 3 guests, and there's always usually like one thing that's slightly wrong, but because I know you so well, I read it through and I was just like, oh, this is pretty spot on. This is really great. So welcome to the show. We're going to be talking a little bit today about, it's spring has sprung. Feels really
Thankfully,
great.
after that long winter.
Oh my God, and so much snow. Although mud season hasn't been bad.
Not bad, not down here anyway.
Yeah, well, I've been all over the state. I've been, showing houses and working with clients from out of state. And even up north, I think it was that one day we got that was in the 70s. Remember, there was just one crazy day and everything melted? Because it hasn't been bad. I've been trapsizing, that's a word, but walking through a lot of woods, muddy woods. All right, so I feel like the market's pretty hot. What's your take?
Well, I've been quite active just last couple of weeks working with a buyer who's involved with a 1031 exchange.
Yeah.
For viewers, it's a reminder that he sold a property in a different state, and to avoid having to pay the capital gains tax on that right now, IRS has a loophole or an option to reinvest those funds into a replacement property, a new property, for the same value or more, and then you don't have to pay capital gains. It kind of kicks the can down the road for capital gains tax. And it's fun for us to talk about this on Taxation Is Theft Day,
Yes.
April 15th. Anyway, one house that he liked, we were going to pursue it mostly, had 28 showings on Saturday's open house and 18 on Sunday at the open house. Yeah.
Wow.
We ended up getting 4 offers all over asking. That was right here in Manchester.
Oh, wow, okay.
So that was a little bit of an outlier because it was priced right. They priced it a little bit under. The market went over. But the other 2 we looked at also had offers within a week of being on the market. So it's still a seller's market, still pretty active.
Okay, and so I'm glad you said that house was in Manchester, because according to Realtors.com hottest housing markets report, the Manchester Nashua area, which of course is, I saw a tweet I had sent years ago, probably at Chris Sununu, being like, Manchester is not an exurb of Boston, but obviously Manchester and Nashua do kind of feed that greater Boston area to some extent, but because we have the free state advantages here in New Hampshire, low taxes, no personal income tax on a state level at least, and hopefully one day maybe no federal income taxes either. But this report said that the metro area is back at #1 for the first time since April last year. So around about this time last year when they did it, we were also the hottest market. Everyone's kind of waiting for that spring thing to happen. And buyers are viewing listings at 3.5 times the national average. It's so interesting to me how granular the data is becoming
It's fantastic,
right?
yeah.
Because
if you're a data person.
Yeah, and because of AI and just like being able to really munge complex things and kind of put things together in a new way. And it's also saying that the homes are selling in just 36 days. I think we've seen days on market, around a month for most of the time. but it sounds like faster currently.
And I should point out, by the way, these houses I'm talking about were in the low 400s. So
Okay.
again, that's below the median value in New Hampshire, which is around $540,000. So closer you get to 400,000, the more buyers, potential buyers you're going to have out there.
Right, and that's just competition. It's something we all understand. It can be rough. I was talking to some people who are from another country, and depending on where you're coming from, even your exchange rate can really impact that, right? So you could be looking at 400,000 house, which to you, if you're coming from some place where the exchange rate is weaker, the dollar is stronger, right? You're suddenly like, oh, you're looking at the 400,000 range houses, but you're used to living in $1 million house, So that's sort of an interesting thing at play as well. All right, so to me, it seems like inventory is rising. Is that something you're seeing?
It always happens this time of year. You get the spring rush of new listings. March, April is really when you see those kick off. The real estate cycle is a bit cyclical here in New Hampshire. It slows down during the winter, particularly around the holidays, but it always kicks off back in March and April. So we're expecting to see a lot more listings over the next 2 months. Then it'll slow down in summertime.
Okay. And then, I have noticed just like literally in my inbox, right? Like where you're just seeing all the open houses and
Yes.
all the new listings coming in. For those who like the numbers, it is actually, sales are up about 20% over last year. According to this, and that the market, of course, also on the seacoast, which is kind of our tonier market, I guess.
Parts of it.
Parts of it.
Yeah.
Has always been a little more expensive, and gets a certain kind of draw. And so it's saying that new listings are up specifically on the seacoast now. So let's talk a little bit about those cap gains ones, right? Because a lot of folks who watch this are in New Hampshire and in Manchester, but the folks who are watching on streaming back home, many are, sort of interested in like how to get to New Hampshire, right? Like what should they be thinking about? What should they be looking at? So let's kind of break it down for someone. Let's imagine Carla is in New York City and she's thinking about moving to New Hampshire. What should I be thinking about?
Okay, well, having talked with hundreds and hundreds of movers, prospective and actual movers, every family has a different motivation. Whether you're single or you have a family with children, you're going to be looking at different things like, first of all, job availability. Now, if you're lucky enough to be able to bring your job with you, you work remotely, either you're an independent contractor or a computer code or something like that, it gives you a lot more options on where you can live inside the state. So you may just as easily live up north in Littleton or Lincoln in the woods as you can down here in the city.
And not to interrupt, but did you find with Starlink that has actually really changed the landscape
Absolutely.
too? Because it used to be that there were parts that were a little dodgy for internet, but now you can hack for that, right? You can get your own Starlink and you can literally live in a cabin in the woods on a lake somewhere where no one can find you. All right, so job.
And if you're coming with children and they're going to schools, public schools or government schools, then they're going to be very interested in that and in how the schools are rated. So there are a few school districts that have good reputations. Let's say Oyster River, Bow schools, Concord schools even are pretty well known. So, and pretty well respected. So people might gravitate towards those school districts, if not those specific towns. So we'll look at that, proximity to job. Then some people just want more of a city lifestyle. And around Manchester, that may not be particularly in Manchester, but could be Bedford, Auburn, Hooksett, where you still have all the amenities of the city, your grocery stores,
And
your malls.
Goffstown, of course.
Goffstown, love it. Londonderry, Merrimack, all these are between Nashua and Manchester, give you great access to everything you need shopping-wise. So it really depends on your lifestyle. And if you want to be more rural, I tell people, if you want to live in the woods, you can still be only 15 or 20 minutes from a big city.
Right.
Live out in Ware or Daring and not be that far from Concord or Manchester. but still feel like you're out in the boondocks a little bit.
Yeah, and honestly, I've been out in the western part of the state, the Keene area, kind of doing some showings out that way. And so I, was doing the east-west tunnel on the 101. And as I was driving, I just thought, how lucky we are in New Hampshire. This is a really remarkable state. And I've traveled, you've traveled, you love to travel. We've been a fair amount of places in the world. And I gotta tell you, just being able to get in your car and never be in a traffic jam, I mean, I hope I haven't cursed us forever, is remarkable. It's just, getting from here to there, east-west sometimes can be a little more difficult, but it's always a beautiful drive. And then obviously north-south with the freeway, that's really going up and down. All right, so New Hampshire is currently the 8th hottest market.
According to different sources, yes.
Okay. This one I thought was interesting because it was actually from a construction company's information.
Okay. I mean, you have U.S. News World Report, and you have different magazines that sometimes will put us in the top 10 or the top 5.
Right.
I've seen Manchester's #1. I've even seen Nashua's #1 at some point. So I'm not sure all the criteria they use, but the point is, if you're talking low days on market, prices at or above asking price, and more buyers than sellers, yeah, we're definitely in the top 10 nationwide.
So I know one of the things I hear a fair amount from people who are out of state or who are looking to come here is, hey, I want to buy some land and build something. Mm-hmm. So what does that look like? Is that, I always get a little bit of heebie-jeebies because it seems like and this is a me thing, it's not necessarily a project thing, but just building a house from scratch seems hard to me. And it does seem like there is a challenge here in terms of finding good construction, labor, that kind of stuff. Is that your experience?
Yes, there are a number of reputable builders here, and if you get connected to one of those, we can help you do that. That eases the process quite a bit. So I've worked with a number of them in the southwest part of the state and the seacoast area, and we plug them in with reputable builders and developers. But if you try to do it on your own, just buy the land, buy a raw piece of dirt, keep in mind it is very involved and can be real expensive. You have to cut trees, you have to cut in a driveway.
And the driveway can be really astronomical.
Just for a gravel
right?
driveway, it can cost $50,000 to cut it in. But if you're going to pave it, it's going to be multiples of that.
Right.
Then you have to drill for a well, septic system. You have to worry if there's any wetlands on there, and you have to cross a creek. Then now you're talking extra expense there for civil engineering and for culverts and things like that. So it can get quite involved in a hurry.
So am I remembering right that the wetlands thing used to be not such a big deal and then it suddenly became a big deal here in New Hampshire? Is that kind of what happened?
No, over the years they have gradually changed some of the rules in regards to setbacks, how far you have to be from wetlands to disturb an area for a land. But
and is this EPA kind of stuff? Can we nullify this at the state level?
We have a state version of the EPA called DES, Department of Environmental Services, and they look at things like that.
Okay, because the reason I ask is one of the properties we did go look at last week was just land. And the gentleman who was subdividing his property, super nice guy, he walked the land with us for for half an hour. But that exact issue of, here's a wetland on the land, and there was an old logging road, but the old logging road goes through the wetland. So he was like, no, you're actually going to have to now cut the driveway from the other side, And I thought, wow, this just doesn't seem like, even if you have a wetland, you're like, okay, your car is this wide. It's not like you're eliminating the wetland. You're just taking a little patch. There's got to be a better.
Yeah, you can get exemptions or variances to those that may require a culvert, for example, or pipe going underneath the street. And you get those approved, but the civil engineering is expensive. You have to get soils engineers out there to take a look at it along with your civil engineer, and those expenses add up in a hurry.
And then actually this gentleman built his own property and is now subdividing the other one, but he did his buildings, one with a barn kit and then a house, like a Cape-style house out of a kit as well. And the barn, I believe, came out of Ware, maybe? And then the house itself was out of New York State. But I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting too. So that is an option for some people. It's just they've got to remember costs.
Yes.
You can do whatever you want in life.
Generally, it's cheaper to buy an existing home.
All right, what else are you seeing? What are you working on right now?
Actually, you mentioned the development side of things. I have a couple of clients who are buying land and then going through the process to get it upzoned. For example, change it from residential to commercial zoning, or to go from single-family residential zoning to multifamily. And some of the towns are amenable to that, and they're encouraging more construction. And in this example, he took a 1 acre parcel, and the towns allowed for multiple, up to 4 units on that. Oh, so he did the engineering drawing, and then the land was much more valuable. Then he could sell that after it had a preliminary approval from the town planning board, and he did the engineering on it, got the civil engineering drawings done. They were approved by the town. Then he could sell those to a developer, or a builder who's actually going to build it. So that's one way to develop value. If somebody's willing to put up with the bureaucracy and do the legwork and the upfront expense of getting it engineered and going through the planning board.
That's interesting, because maybe with this guy up in, I think it was in Jaffrey, that might be a recommendation for him then, if he is doing the subdividing, because he specifically was like, oh, just talk to Rob at town hall. It was such a New Hampshire experience, because if you live here and you know your town hall people, you can usually get the permits and stuff. It's not like you're going to the DMV in Manhattan,
No, they're usually very cooperative, as long as you're following the rules. They have their checklist of things you need to look out for, setbacks and snow removal and snow storage and site limitations on corners, and if it's on a state road, you have to deal with DOT. Again, the wetlands, streams, vernal pools, all this stuff, soils, quality for septic. But if you check off those boxes, then there's some good opportunities there.
All right, so I do want to leave a little bit of time. I think he gave us a 10-minute warning at some stage. We had talked a little bit before the show about, I thought it'd be useful for people to think about good negotiation tactics. I know we're kind of switching gears here a little bit, but one of the examples I mentioned this morning was, I remember when I was a young lawyer in Silicon Valley, and I was, going to all these workshops and learning how to negotiate properly, and like the things you should do and the language you should use and that kind of stuff. One of the tricks that really stuck in my mind was when you have an issue, a way to invite the other side to talk is to be like, hey, can you help me understand X, right? And it's just one of those little catchphrases that you can really just use in conversations that are quite neutral. I was wondering, because you have such a world of experience, like what are your little tricks of the trade that we could tell everyone?
Of course, we use this in sales and marketing and the real estate side of things, and use it in politics as well. On the political side, it's often seen as just red team versus blue team, but on a lot of issues, both sides actually do come together, but still, not everybody's going to be pleased. So we look at what can we offer to something the other side that's going to appease them in order to get what we want, which is their support on the piece of legislation, for example. And
colloquially known as horse trading.
Yeah, it happens. It's ugly. It's an ugly part of the business. If you have a strong majority, then you don't need to give away as much.
Right.
But on things that aren't so partisan, of which there are many, many such issues, you got to come together and hear all the so-called stakeholders and people who can be affected, and nobody knows it all. So it's important to have these public hearings and hear from sides that don't agree with you, so you can come with the best type of product. Then on the real estate side, certainly when you're negotiating, it helps to be prepared with the data. Right now it's a little bit tougher because it's such a seller's market, but if something's been on the market for a while, or it's priced a little high, you need to go in there and say, okay, here are the comparable sales, what we call comps, have the data, and go in nicely, but say, hey, this is what things are really showing in the market. We notice the roof is showing its age. They're going to need a new roof.
Like me.
Yeah, the water heater is 12 years old. That's going to need to be replaced. So you set that out with the initial offer, because sometimes the sellers aren't aware, or the listing agent is blowing smoke of the seller. So you got to put those and put your best offer forward with the information that's going to help you.
So facts that can really underscore whatever the argument is you're making.
Another thing that's important to know is what the seller's motivation is, because it's not always about price. It's the same for a buyer. Both buyers and sellers, there are all sorts of terms other than price, such as how long it is to closing, the type of financing, whether it's VA or FHA or conventional. Is it a cash purchase? Sometimes the seller is in a state and the house is full, and the last seller was a hoarder, and they moved out, and they just don't want to deal with it.
Yep.
So if you can say, hey, you know what, I'll take the house as is, all that stuff in there, we'll take that off your plate. They may accept a lower price because you're going to make their lives a lot easier.
And you know, that seems like good advice just generally in life, right? Is get information, sort of really have the conversation to sort of know what the motivations are, so that one can meet people where it is and come to the table and hopefully come up with a deal that, you know, works for everyone. And of course, in real estate, that's literally it, right? We are constantly making deals, and you gave me the best advice when I got into this way back not that way back, but you said to me, Carla, your job is to make people feel really good about what will be their most expensive purchase in life. And I thought that is such a honorable way, and you have a great reputation in the state, and that's, you know, that speaks for itself, to come to the table and, you know, just try and really, you know, I call it renting out my good karma. But it's the same sort of sentiment. In our last few minutes, because this always goes way too fast, let folks know where they can get a hold of you and any last wisdom you would like people to know. Okay,
I'm not as active on Facebook as I used to be, but Mark Warden, or Porcupine Real Estate on Facebook. I have an X account that I really just doom scroll. I don't post very much.
No!
But best way is through the website, which is porcupinerealestate.com. And happy to chat with anybody who needs some advice on that.
All right, and if you get a hold of Mark, and hopefully he sends your interest my way, I, of course, can be reached at carla@porcupinerealestate.com. And in the last moments, I just want to remind folks, there is a New Hampshire constitutional amendment that is coming up that should make it to the ballot for this midterm election that will enshrine that they can't introduce an income tax in the great state of New Hampshire. Everyone should get behind that. I will talk about that one more next week. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being with us here. I wish you peace, love, and understanding.